Good morning, everybody. Oh, come on, one more time. Bigger and better this time. Good morning. That's better. Thank you so much. So thank you all for coming this morning. This is the main event. This is what we have been waiting for months with CulpeperCon. It has been an extremely enjoyable moment for Culpeper. It has been something that I think is desperately needed because of the way that Comic-Cons have typically been a part of a specific culture. And that culture is nerddom. Being fanboys, or girls, being the importance for how we can all connect each other with graphic novels, pop culture, and comic books. And that also includes science fiction and the like. A couple of months ago, I actually had a very intriguing online presentation. And it was about libraries and graphic novels. And it really showcased what the importance was for graphic novels in a public library. And that's literacy. And we're a public library. We are the literacy program of the world. Public libraries, I mean, since their first start in Boston, have grown into something that is so universal, so important to the way that people react. But during this particular meeting of library graphic novels, I was just kind of hesitant of being a part of it. It was online, and I'm not a big fan of online presentations, if I can tell you right now. But there was this, the very first event that they had going on was a moderated event of 3 panelists. And they were talking about the graphic novel form of Afrofuturism. And they had this particular moderator on there, and she was amazing. I mean, the way that she spoke, the way that she engaged, I was absolutely blown away the very first time. And being a librarian, I went online and I did some research on this particular person. And I found out that this particular Dr. Grace Gipson is a professor at Virginia Commonwealth University. And her research focuses on how African Americans are represented in graphic novels and pop culture. Doing a little bit more research, I read her bio, I visited her online page, that she does an amazing blog and has interests of her graphic novels and the Comic-Cons that she's gone to, and now CulpeperCon. So I am very proud to introduce a University of California, Berkeley PhD, Dr. Grace Gipson.
Thank you. Yes. All righty. How do I, compete with that? Okay. Whew, all righty. So let me get this set up here. First, let me just say, when Andrew reached out to me, there was already, there was no hesitation as far as participating. I have a very special place in my heart for libraries. My mother took me to them every weekend. That was a treat for me to be able to go to the library, pick a book out to see what I wanted to read. And so anytime any library reaches out to me to come and talk, it's an automatic yes. Because in many ways, libraries saved my life. They offered me a space to feel like I belonged, and they gave me a space to really discover what it is that I love and treasure, and comics is definitely one of those. So today we're going to be looking at this idea of telling her story, imagining Black girl futures in comics. And so we are in the closing of Women's History Month, and so I just wanted to, attach that, bring that in and connect that, as well as my interest within comics. All righty. Okay, so before we dive into the content and all of that good stuff, let me just give you a little bit more background on who I am. So my students at VCU call me Dr. G. That's the nickname. That it works for them. They like it. It's cool. I said, okay, we roll with it. And so I am what I like to call a Black pop culture and comic book scholar, Black future feminist, Afrofuturist. I'm a Black girl nerd. I'm a comic ACA fan. So not only do I do the research, but I'm a fan. And so I am very much wanting to make sure that the Academy and those within the Academy space know that comics is something that we should be talking about. It's, it can be fun, but we should also bring it into the space of schools and classrooms. And I'm also an assistant professor of African American Studies. So I've taught a variety of courses, from everything in Blackness and pop culture to Black women in television to looking at Black fashion within the 60s and 70s. So as you can see through the visual images, I started out young in my interest of pop culture. As you can see with the Cabbage Patch dolls there. My mother still has them somewhere for me. Because I'm sure they'll be worth a nice little piece of change maybe later on in life. So I've been in pop culture since I was a young kid, and I've gotten the opportunity to go to several Comic-Cons. So to the left here, I went to New York Comic-Con. That was my first Comic-Con experience. And let me tell you, that was mind-blowing. I felt like I was just in a sea of fans of culture. And so I actually got a chance to meet an artist who I'm hugely a fan of, who's in the picture there, Sanford Green. Any work on Luke Cage, anything in Marvel, he's had his hand in it somewhere. And so it's just a huge opportunity to meet him. And then WonderCon, which is this one here, which is in Anaheim, California. And so that focuses specifically on women within the pop culture space. So being able to take part in that and realizing that I could go to these Comic-Cons and present, but I can also go and be a fan. So it's like truly this really cool experience where I get to bring in my loves and my research. And then on the end here is in Richmond, they have this thing called the silent headphone party, where everybody gets their own headphones, and between 3 different DJs, you can like switch between, but everybody gets to listen to what they want to listen to. So you're in this big, large space, listening to your music, jamming to it, but nobody else hears what you hear, maybe, unless you're on the same channel. So everything from music to the Cabbage Patch dolls to what's on television, that is a great deal of what influences my work. So I feel it's important to show that and speak to that because you'll understand the passion that I have for this topic and for the work of comics. All right, so let's start in the beginning here. So comics, we know, have, in the American sense, has been here for quite a while. But in the American sense, definitely early 1920s, 1930s, we're seeing this popularity of comic books coming to the stage. And so for African Americans, what we see as some of the early beginnings of entering into this is through Jackie Orms, who would become the first African American syndicated Black female cartoonist through her cartoon strip, Torchy from the Heartbeats. And so she was based out of Chicago, Illinois. So I'm a Midwesterner. I'm originally from Champaign, Illinois. So I was like super excited to see the work of Jackie Orms, who through her comic strips was talking about everything from the FBI. She was talking about civil rights. She was talking about agriculture. She was talking about women's roles and gender roles. And this was through a comic strip. And so the one thing that I like to tell people is that you can learn so much from one panel, from a whole series of comics, from a whole series of graphic novels. And this is in the 1930s and 40s that she's offering this information, that she's providing this context. So much so that the FBI did actually have them on their watch list as far as, we need to look out for her because she might be saying a few things that, maybe we're not wanting the masses to, to say or hear. So, through the inception of comics and comic book strips, there's always this storytelling medium that we're seeing. There's a lot of political and social commentary that we're seeing through these visuals and the written word. And while it's often considered to be a harmless medium of entertainment, comics would literally illustrate the attitudes and prejudice of the culture, resulting in a legacy of sometimes racial caricatures and manipulated iconography. But over time, comics has brought visual life to these fictional narratives. So the one interesting thing, particularly with Jackie Orms and others, is that a lot of what we see in these strips actually does happen in real life. So while this is a fantasy, while there is this fictional aspect to it, there is this real life narrative that is threaded through each of these particular stories. So next we have Milestone Comics and Raquel Irvin Rocket. So Milestone Comics would be the first African-American publishing company. It would be under the umbrella of DC Comics, but would be the first African-American publishing company to produce African-American content, and would have a all African-American publishing team. And the interesting thing about this particular character, Rocket, was her love and interest for, let me go back, for Toni Morrison and W.E.B. Du Bois. And so here, once again, we're inserting where here is this teen. She's in her about 16, 17, and she's engaging with material of Toni Morrison and W.E.B. Du Bois, material that I probably did not see until I got to college. Or even grad school. So she's already engaging with this material at such a young age. Also through her storyline, we'd actually begin talking about such topics as teen pregnancy. So early on, we're getting into very controversial topics, but engaging with them through this format so that we can have these discussions that could be difficult or hard, but also want to maybe offer another perspective, offer another way to engage with it. So next we have Sojourner Jo Mullen, Far Sector from DC Comics. So she would be one of the first African-American female Green Lantern. And so, you see, I'm mixing it up here for you all. So I'm giving you a little Milestone, giving you a little DC. You'll definitely get some Marvel in here as well. And I'm gonna even give you a few indie comics from outside of the US. And so with Far Sector, this would be a limited series housed under DC Comics Young Animal Publishing. It would also be the comic debut of sci-fi writer N.K. Jemisin, who is pictured here, and would also feature the art of Jamal Campbell. Far Sector introduces a new Green Lantern named Sojourner Jo Mullen, who we're definitely seeing some intentionality with the naming. Anybody happen to know maybe who she might have been named after? Any guesses? Sojourner Truth, yes, that would be her. And so Sojourner is recruited to keep the peace on this far distant planet. We have a very confident black female heroine who also has her own fears, but she's human. But she's also a superhero as well. So it's this part 5 sci-fi mystery, part commentary on the state of the nation. So we're blending Afrofuturism, we're blending feminist politics in here. We're also looking at what does it mean to have a young adult who is not even 20 having to take part in saving the world. That's a huge responsibility that one has to think about and consider there. And so, as a standalone telling of a fictional story steeped in the reality of police violence, protesting, and suppressed voices that are being heard, we're seeing through Jemisin's writing and Campbell's art that readers get the feeling of a blend between this alien, foreign, and familiar with this technology advancement, and also the ways in which we can diminish racial and oppressive divisions. Far Sector as a comic is also part of this mainstreaming publishing company, and allows the opportunity to visually see how a black young girl can be at the front and center in the Green Lantern universe. Considering oftentimes black girls within comics have been either minimalized, made invisible, or not even just simply seen, it's necessary and important to see her in this particular role. And also a celebration of this artist team of Jemisin and Campbell. So next we have Agents of the Realm by Mildred Lewis. So I wanted to throw in a few web comics And so the great thing about comics is you can access them in so many different ways, whether it's on your cell phone, whether it's on your iPad, whether it's in a web form, or in the actual, physical copy. And Agents of the Realm is one that takes place in this kind of another sci-fi universe, and it takes place at a high school. So you have a group of 5 girls who are arranging from being identifying as queer, Latinx, African American, to Asian American. So there is different voices that are being showcased and broadcast through this realm. And here they're talking about their experiences as young adults in high school. But at the same time, they have these powers that they're trying to figure out, how do they use them? How do they make sure that the world that they're living in is safe for not only them as young adults, but also for the other people who are inhabiting the space as well. And so here we're getting an opportunity to see Black and brown voices being featured. We're also getting an opportunity to hear LGBTQ voices being presented, and through this web format, so that it provides another level of accessibility for people to read comics. Another one is Bingo Love from T. Franklin. And what I like about this one is, and so if my grandmother was here, rest her soul, she would truly feel like she was being seen. So here is a comic that is looking at the 65+ age and their experiences, because not only do young adults and children have fun, but my grandmother, her age, they like to have fun as well too, and their stories need to be told, they need to be shared, and there are various experiences that they go through that sometimes many of us don't understand. So to have an opportunity to see it from another lens, another perspective, is necessary and important. And Bingo Love is looking at a Black queer woman and a Latinx woman who, over time, grew together a relationship. They would marry early on in the beginning, have children. They were always friends, but somehow that relationship became more, and they end up becoming a couple as well. And so through their love of bingo, because they met at a bingo hall, that would be this way of looking at aging. So here we're having an opportunity to talk about the aging process. We're also looking at the way in which stereotypes that are placed upon this idea of ageism, and what they're capable of doing and what they're capable of saying and speaking to. And this is also a comic that can be found online as well as in the comic book form. So I felt it necessary to not only just express the stories in the hard copy format, but also through the web format as well. All right, so I'm going to take you all over to Nigeria now with some comics. So through the series, the publishing company Vortex Comics, we have Land of Gods. And so this is looking at 13-year-old Kashia Bello, who is a Nigerian American who goes to visit her grandmother in the Ogun state of Nigeria, just north of Lagos. She steps through a magical mirror into a world of gods and other creatures to find that she is destined to save humanity. And so here it's interesting how this idea of her being able to go to grandma's house and her stepping into this new world for the summer, and how something magical happens during this time. And what becomes unique and interesting about this is that Black Girl Magic is not just based here in the U.S. It crosses waters, it crosses into other countries. And so through this 13-year-old Kashia Bello, we're able to be engaged, we're able to be entertained, we're able to learn about the culture within Lagos in Nigeria. And so Vortex Comics is a fairly new publishing company, as Nigeria is kind of getting into the game of comic books. And so whereas the big two, Marvel and DC, definitely have a huge takeover, other countries like Nigeria saying, but we want to be a part of this, and we're going to put our hat into the ring. And we're seeing this through the series of Land of the Gods. And so this is essentially Black Girl Magic in the making, and is perfect for younger and older readers alike. Another story that's coming out of the Nigerian imagination is that of Ireti, and she is considered one of, and been billed as the first African female superhero to also have a feature film that's coming out of Nigeria. And it's coming out of the Comic Republic publishing company, which is the largest publishing of independent comics. And so it originates in Nigeria as well. And here we have Ireti, who is an archaeologist in undergrad. So she is, discovering many things through her studies and through her imagination. She is in the university, but she's also channeling a lot of this ancient warrior queen to fight crime in style. So she's rocking jeans, she has sneakers, and she has a golden lion engraved gauntlet that she wears as a part of good luck for her. And as someone who identifies, like I said, as an Afrofuturist, as a Black feminist, I am fully supportive of this move to not only encourage young girls to be limitless in their pursuits, but also to show interest in histories beyond what they are familiar with. And here, what I also love is that the fact she's studying archaeology, the fact that she's a nerd and she loves it, she embraces it. And so we're looking outside of the box of what little girls are able to do and see and accomplish. And so it's going even beyond that. She's invested in her past, and she's also looking towards the future, this fantastic future. All righty, so let me bring you on into Marvel Comics. So here we have Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, Lunella Lafayette. And she would be enter into the game in 2015, becoming the smartest person in the Marvel Universe. And this would happen in 2015. So when we say smartest person, we're not saying the smartest girl, we're not saying smartest teen, we're saying the smartest person. So that means she beat out Reed Richards, she beat out the Hulk, she beat out some, older adults. And so it becomes inspiring to see, at the time of her debut, a 9-year-old superhero genius picking up that mantle. And so much so that her sidekick would be a big red dinosaur. Who goes along with her on her journeys as she fights crime. She's based out of New York, so we're kind of bringing it back here stateside. Very family oriented, as we see in the image here. Her grandparents and her parents are very much a part of her life, very much a part of making sure that she is able to flourish and grow. She is also a huge a STEM girl. She's loving creating things. She's a scientist at heart, and she, so much so that she spends much of her free time building and collecting things and also saving the world. So once again, we're looking at this idea of a preteen who wants to save the world. That's what she wants to do in her spare time. In addition to going to class and doing her homework, she wants to make sure that she saves the world. And I'm super excited because her series just dropped on Disney Plus this past February. So not only do we get a chance to read her series, but we actually get to see her in live action form on the Disney Plus series. And it's exciting. I get a chance to watch it with my nieces and nephews, and they're like, oh my gosh, she looks like me. She's saving the world. She has this cool costume, and she's having fun at the same time. And so this would be a huge project in Marvel, in the Marvel comic universe, as it's offering an opportunity to engage with younger readers and be able to welcome those who feel as though they want to be seen, but not necessarily know if they can see that through someone like a Storm or through someone like a Wonder Woman. So we have another a teen who is entering into the Marvel universe, and that is of Ironheart, Riri Williams. And if you saw Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, you will see that is where she made her film debut into the MCU. But before that, she would actually have her own comic book series written by Eve L. Ewing, who is a professor at the University of Chicago, who would be one of the writers on her series. And Shuri is also continuing in this legacy of looking at Black girl magic, of looking at Black girls in STEM, and in the ways in which they are these young geniuses who are also taking up this idea of what it means to be smart, what it means to be gifted, but what it also means to just be, you know, a little girl or a young teen who just wants to have fun at the same time. And through Riri's story, we're able to see Chicago being put on display. And so if you're familiar with mini comics, oftentimes New York is often the key location, a city. If it's not somewhere fictional, Gotham oftentimes, you know, takes up that mantle. And so to have Chicago, a very real city, be one of the characters within this series is also an opportunity to engage with what's going on in that city and through the eyes of this young teen. Through Riri's character, we also, this was about, I believe, 2016, 2017, MIT would use her image and actually create a short video as part of their admissions campaign to announce the students who were coming into the incoming class. So it was exciting to see this video of Riri, who actually in the comics is a student at MIT. So they're actually bringing in, you know, the connection of what we're seeing in the comic, actually bringing it on the campus of MIT, and she's going in to deliver the message of here are the incoming students in the class coming at MIT. So we're doing a lot of blending in the real world and fiction through her story. You can also see her story, which will be, you know, depending on, you know, Marvel has a way of switching their timelines when it comes to releasing material. But her series is set to debut this year as well, later in the year on Disney Plus as well. But you can see a little vignette of her in the Marvel Rising series on Disney Plus in her episode Heart of Iron. And so she's picking up the mantle of what we all saw through Robert Downey Jr.'s character of Iron Man. She's taking it up in a younger version, and she's bringing it to the shy, as they would say. She's also engaging with other female superheroes of same age, as in Shuri and Silhouette. So she's actually kind of putting teams together herself and looking at the ways in which they're able to save the world through these young minds. Alrighty, so one of my favorite groups within the Marvel universe and within the comic universe, that of the Dora Milaje. And so once again, if you saw Black Panther, the first one, and Black Panther Wakanda Forever, you cannot miss that of the Dora Milaje, the all-female military unit set to protect Wakanda and protect the Black Panther. And so what's interesting to note, hit the wrong button there, is that the Dora Milaje have actually existed since 1998. But they didn't get that much attention because, of course, you got Black Panther who's running Wakanda, and so everybody's focused on T'Challa. But without T'Challa and without, you know, the work that he does, you know, the Dora Milaje are there always. And so in 1998, we see them, this is actually what they looked like when they first came out in the comics, written by Christopher Priest. And so for anyone who's into 90s R&B, you will notice that they are very closely related to groups like En Vogue and Jade. And so they are fighting in high heels, you know, shoes, short skirts and dresses. You know, I mean, I'm not a superhero myself, but I'm just really trying to figure out how they were able to navigate that. Also with a very freshly, you know, nice hairstyle at the same time as well. So it's interesting how the outfits, the way in which they were portrayed, you know, you begin to kind of question, like, can somebody really fight in that? Or is this really realistic? And so we would definitely see a transition here into how the Dora Milaje are presented. And so they would go through various phases to the point to where we see them in the current day MCU universe. What is unique about the Dora Milaje is that they're able to stand on their own. They take direction, but they're also able to fight on their own. They're able to be unapologetic in their nature of who they are. They don't just let anybody come in and say and do anything. And if you've seen the Falcon and Winter Soldier series with their entrance, this is a particular unique scene in which the fake Captain America thinks that, oh, you know, I'm big and bad, and, you know, I'm going to tell you what to do. And he would be sadly mistaken very quickly of that and kind of put in his place, so to speak. And then we'd also see, not only do we see the comics, there's this transition, and in the movie seeing a transition, but in World of Wakanda, which is here in the center, Roxane Gay would actually write that series. And this would be the introduction of the first African queer couple within a mainstream comic. And so we're, like I said, we're seeing definitely innovation, we're seeing transformation, we're seeing this way in which these characters move from one representation to another to be more inclusive, to have additional conversations, and it's speaking to the gender roles, it's speaking to the way in which a woman can be a leader. She can stand on her own, she can be a warrior, and not feel as though she has to be threatened by anyone else, or others feel threatened of her. And so as I bring this to a close, it's just, my work is what I love to do, and I love being able to see myself within the work that I'm doing. And early on, when I first started looking at comics, and particularly looking at comics and graphic novels, I didn't see myself that much in them. The one character who I did identify with, who you can see on my sweater here, was Storm. And to this day, Storm is definitely still one of my favorite characters, top 3 of all time. But at the time, I was a teen when I'm reading this. And so I wanted to see characters that were my age, that looked like me, that were represented. And we're definitely seeing a change and a growth as it relates to that, and how there are more characters being represented within comics. They're being represented within the big 2, Marvel and DC. They're being represented within the independent realm. And so there's numerous spaces, and we're finding them on television. We're seeing them in the movies. So there's a lot more opportunities to see particularly young Black girls and young Black teens presented in this comic universe. We see here Niobe, which was a story written by Amanda Stenberg. So if you ever saw The Hunger Games, Rue, she actually wrote that comic, part of the team that wrote Niobe. We're also seeing where little girls can be a part of the vampire story. We're also seeing how and here, Naomi was a CW series in which she was a huge Superman fan. And so we get this opportunity to see also a continuation of Black girls in STEM, and the ways in which they can also be superheroes in these very small towns. And so she's from Port Oswego. And so we're also introducing another city, introducing another location to engage with the comic book landscape. And we also get a chance to see representations within ancient Egypt and ancient African cultures through the character of Sadiqa. And we also see how through Victor Laval's Eve, we see a young preteen who is trying to save the world, and her father is kind of her guide. Her father passes away, but also serves as a kind of this mental guide, as a one to lead her into the directions that she's needing to go. It's mixing fantasy, it's mixing sci-fi, and so we're able to see a numerous amount of genres being incorporated, magic realism, so it's not just relegated to one particular area of comics. And so some future thoughts. So it's important that we, normalize reality and fiction of Black female representations and experiences within comics and pop culture. Each of these narratives, as well as many others, have the ability to inform, to educate, to entertain, spark imagination of readers and viewers, while also inspiring future realities. And so there are levels to this. So when I say there are levels to this, meaning you can come in at different points. You can come in where you maybe feel comfortable. You can come in where you're wanting to learn more and gain more. Or you can come in at that very experienced level and add on to what it is that you're already aware of. And just know, Black girls and women, we always have a story to tell. There's always going to be one that is present It may be one that resonates. It may be one that that you're intrigued by. It may be one that is just quite fascinating in all that it is. And so just, a few thoughts to take with you as you think about some of these few characters. This is just a small subset of what is, within the comic book canon. And that's what I love about comics, is that there is so much to engage with. There's so many characters to tap into, and there's so many more that are coming into the landscape. So if nothing else, if they say there's a shortage of comics, you tell them, no, there's definitely not that. There's so many, and it's reaching beyond U.S. borders. I was just in Belgium this past June, and there's a whole comic book community, particularly in Belgium and even in Europe. So we're not alone in our stories, and there are many people who are on that same page as far as wanting to step outside of their reality. For me, comics was that space where when I just wanted to not be in the real world, I would pick up my comic and I would kind of go into the world of where these characters were for that brief moment in time. And then I would realize I do have to come back because I have to pay bills. I have to, have security. We have to do all that. But for that, moment in time, it does take you away, and it does allow to escape. It does inform. Which is important why, as Andrew was mentioning, the importance of why comics need to be a part of literacy. Many people, and children in particular, studies have shown they've learned to read through comics. They've learned to see who they are. They've learned to create identities. When we're thinking also about the banning of certain books and certain comics, we have to make sure we put our voices out there so that books that are important and necessary for us to read, comics that have powerful messages, are not being taken away, and that those messages are not being snuffed out. So I thank you all for being a part of this journey with me, and engaging with a little bit of Black Girl Magic here. Some specific thank yous. So let's say for you being here today, for Andrew for reaching out to me after seeing me on the Zoom, the Friends of Library and Fountain Hall, my students current and past, and it's very important that I speak about the ancestors who encouraged me to do the work that I do. My grandmother, who's at the top of that list, she was the first one to give me the funny papers when I was 4 years old. She was reading her newspaper, and I wanted to read a newspaper too. And so she said, "This is yours," and that is what led to my love of comics and where I am today. I wish she could be here to see, because I would tell her, I said, "Look, those funny papers have got me a job. Those funny papers have allowed me to travel the world. Those funny papers have allowed me to talk about it in my classroom. What I do is I love what I do. I love teaching, and I get to incorporate this love of comics into that all the time. Jackie Orms, Octavia Butler, John Henry Clark, and all the ancestors whose lives and legacies inspire our story. So, like I said, I thank you all for being here today. I did want to open an opportunity for folks if they had questions, and yeah, there we go. Oh, and this is, yes. And so you're more than welcome to follow my journey on these various social media, the internets, as my students call them, via the website, Twitter, Instagram, and a video podcast that I do. So, like I said, I love what I do. I love comics. It is a part of me, will always be a part of me. And I'm just hoping that, a little bit you'll be able to take away to maybe pass on, or, do some more interrogation of your own as well. Thank you. Yes, sir.